Welcome to Lightworkers Secrets to Success. And we are so excited today because we are interviewing Vince Bellitto, who is a shadow integration and transformation coach. And of course, we're all here, Adam, Pamela, Amanda, and Rebecca, and me, Colette, to ask lots of questions to Vince around what he's creating and what he's working on. So I have the great pleasure of knowing Vince personally. He is actually my coach and trainer for the coaching that I've been working on for the last year in shadow integration. And he's just an amazing human. He has an amazing story. I'm so excited for you guys to hear his background and where he came from and what he's created. He's been doing this work for like almost 20 years now. And yeah, he just has such a great story. So I'm just so excited for you guys to meet him and get to know him. So Vince, can you just tell us a little bit about your background story, how you came to be a shadow integration and transformation coach, and the difference
Sure.
between the two and whatever you'd like to share about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Colette. Thank you, Adam, Pamela, Rebecca, and Amanda for having me here. It's a delight and pleasure to connect with other beautiful souls who are just really dedicated to the well-being of humanity, the evolution of humanity, the transformation of humanity. I know that's why we're all here together in this space right now. So thank you very much for having me. So a little bit about myself. Yeah, back in 1999, it was a pivotal moment for me. I was leaving an apartment that I was in, getting high for a few days. I was living a life as a criminal and a drug dealer, and I was having some micro seizures. And my buddies and I were getting in the car. I was driving, and they're asking me if I'm all right. I almost like collapsed a little bit in the elevator going down. I was like, oh, something's not up. We're up for 2 days doing cocaine, LSD, ecstasy, smoking weed, drinking lots of alcohol, smoking cigarettes, smoking cocaine, taking some pills. I mean, it was like mixing. And I was with a group of people that we went all out. Like we would do it to 4 days, no sleep. It was pretty wild, mixing all kinds of stuff. And it was catching up to me. So we're driving, I'm turning a corner at an intersection, and it's lights out for me. That was it. Next thing I know, I'm waking up on the sidewalk. I'm being lifted up. I start vomiting blood. I am totally not conscious as I normally would be conscious. I'm aware, but I was like pure awareness for the minute. I was watching my body do what it was doing, but not even understanding what my body was. There was medics in front of me, and my friend was there who had just apparently given me CPR and kept me going before the medics came. And I found out basically that nothing was really graspable. Like there was just like this stuff happening. And then little by little, the voices started to click and my brain started piecing things together. And I realized like what was going on and where I was coming from. And they just told me I just overdosed, that I had no pulse, that I almost lost my life. And they're going to take me to the hospital. I want to check if I'm okay, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh my God. So they bring me to the hospital. I'm handcuffed in bed because this was a violation of my probation. I was on probation at the time. I had 2 felonies for possession with intent to distribute marijuana and cocaine just the year before. And so I was coming near the end of my stint. I was in a rehab program, court ordered, but I obviously was not honoring that program whatsoever. And so here I am in the bed, handcuffed, thinking a lot and realizing, wow, I almost died. I almost got myself killed. If I continue doing what I'm doing, I'm probably not going to survive. In fact, I know I won't. I need to turn this around. And so I started to just contemplate what I could do and made a powerful decision that day to cut off everything. Just gave up the whole game. People owed me money. I told them, Merry Christmas, have a good one. I owed some people money. I said, take a walk. I'm out of the game. I just cut all the ties, and I started hanging out with myself and with nature and trying to figure out who I was going to become from here and what I needed to do next. And I had no idea. And made my way into the library, started to read some things, got interested in science, got interested in spirituality, got interested in therapy, got interested in all these different psychologies and perspectives of psychology. And started a basic practice of Zen Buddhist meditation. And that Zen Buddhist meditation started to open up everything for me. And I discovered this ability to calm down, to be more present, to be more aware. And then all of a sudden, the past memories started to surface. The things I had been suppressing with the life of crime and drug dealing and drug using. And I started to witness in my mind the memories of my stepdad, abusing my mother. First times it started to happen, it was extremely severe, broken nose, bloodied face, crumpled on the floor. And there was a lot of emotion that started to surface as well. Of course, I'm meditating so deeply, I would spend an hour to 2 hours in just silent observation of my breath, standard Zen Buddhist practice. And all this stuff started to surface, and I just went wild. I would cry, I would convulse, I would be angry. Like the whole range of emotions was there. I was depressed. I was, violently aggressive. I was abusive to myself. I would punch myself in the face because I was so angry at myself, and I was so ashamed and hurt. And it was just this very chaotic thing, but it had this healing effect on me in a sense. I started to discharge. It was not as easy as I do things now, but back then it was very helpful. And I started to, unfortunately, nobody was there to witness me. I was in my own room. I had my own space. If somebody would have seen me, they probably would have checked me in. I probably would have been medicated, or they would have tried. I was anti-drug everything. That was another little bit of an issue. I just was coming off of so much so fast. And so everything just kind of just came up. And it was a great thing. It was an uncomfortable thing. I'm glad I survived it. And I began searching for a spiritual experience of sorts, because I learned that that was possible. And I didn't know what that meant. I just know that I wanted truth. I wanted to know why I was here. What's the meaning of life? What's going on? Is there anything more beyond death? Because I was almost dead and there was nothing. I didn't see angels or demons. I didn't have one of those cool out-of-body experiences that I'd heard about. Like nothing happened. Didn't meet with my ancestors, nothing. It was just lights out. So I was horrified at the idea of dying. And so I was pursuing, and I needed to know, it was a demand to know. And it was one day I set up a meditation and a practice, and I was super intentional about knowing. And, long story short, I just had a huge awakening, like light just turned on inside of me. All my attention shifted from the outer world to the inner world. And I fell to my knees, and I found myself, strangely enough, saying the words, Jesus Christ. I was not interested in Jesus. I was studying every religion but Christianity. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I thought it was hocus pocus. I was arguing with my uncle a week before how the Bible is just a bunch of made up stories. And here I am experiencing this beingness that I was literally calling Jesus Christ, but I didn't see a man, and I didn't experience someone other than myself. It was the experience of my own being, that I was actually united with this one that we call Jesus Christ. And it was not a concept. It wasn't a word. It was just a knowing that I never die, that I live forever, that loving your enemies and doing good to those who hurt you, like those basic ideas that I heard about, made sense in this space. It was the space of Jesus Christ. I've never said it like that, but it was the space of everyone is everyone. There's no one to oppose. There's just this one unified field of awareness. And I was just in this, and I was like, it was mind bending. And I felt extremely powerful and alive. And I had this deep sense of immortality and safety and security. It was the most pleasurable and enjoyable moment of my life. And as that wore off and I started to come back to my ordinary human mind, all I could think about was sharing this with everyone. And the only thing I knew how to say was, we're all God. And that wasn't going over very well with people. So all the feedback that was coming, and the people were arguing with me, especially the religious ones, they were really upset about that. I just was challenged by all this. So I just started to read more and want to learn more, and started to learn the Bible even itself, because people were throwing all these scriptures at me. And so I just got really interested, and I've been pursuing, studying all religions for many years now. And I got really good at studying the Bible, like studying it, understanding its history and what the Greek and the Hebrew is actually saying, and its relevance to my experience. So I have a profound understanding and connection with the Bible from a very empowering way, very unique perspective of it. And I love it. But yeah, that really got me on that journey. And then I had a relationship go bad. The last thing I'll say that got me into this whole coaching world, that I was doing a lot of my own transformation. I was leading a lot of small Bible studies, spiritual groups, prayer groups on campus, at home, just opening people up to possibilities and connecting with themselves and the spirit within. And I got into a marriage that was really rough. And it was so rough. I was full of love, full of like just gratitude for life. And people called me Jesus at work because they thought I was so good, you know what I mean? And I was so helpful and cared so much. And but my ex-wife had so much trauma in her background and so much pain. And no matter what I did, no matter how I was with her, I was not experienced like I am today. It just got worse and worse. And she got so angry and so violent. And I started to perceive myself as a victim. And I just fell from my high spiritual standing and just landed right into the freaking hell. And I was losing my mind, and I had to leave the relationship. And I was devastated because I loved her deeply. I cared deeply about this woman, and there seemed like there was nothing I could do to turn this situation around. And that just made me beg like for answers, like, what am I missing? And I had a book come to my mind that I had read years ago, and it just taught me a basic therapy process and an understanding of human mind and how humans behave, why they react the way they do. And then from there, I started to practice this form of therapy and study others. And I got really focused. It was about 14 years ago now, just really focused on working with human beings in a processing format to really deal with the deep subconscious content that was causing all the pain, frustration, and reaction to life. So here I am, and that's why I'm here doing what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
What's the name of that book, first of all? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
The book was Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health by L. Ron Hubbard. Okay. And I had actually read that book. I was like 22. It was very early in my spiritual journey. I had read the book and it was fascinating. And there was this prescription for how to provide basic process of therapy with people, right? And I never did it. But after reading the book the second time, I was like, oh, I get this now. And I get why this is important. And that began my journey. So then I just started looking for everything I could in this dimension of psychology and processing and trauma therapy and, somatic psychotherapy, et cetera, and just going on and on into the world of, wow, we can actually be with people in a way that allows them to get in contact with the subconscious content. It just became a mission from there.
Nice.
That's such an awesome story. And I love, like, every time I hear it, I'm just like, whoa, so awesome. And then you started working in trauma centers, like with recovery, with people that were like in therapy, the therapy wasn't working. So can you just share with us a little bit about that? Like, your work and how it affected people?
Yeah. So I got connected. I got invited to speak at a teen recovery treatment center, 13-year-old to 17-year-olds who had, we're talking about 13-year-olds who have been shooting heroin. I had never seen even that in my day. And I was a drug dealer. And I wouldn't even have conceived of selling a 13-year-old some heroin or something like that. But this was real. And I got to speak with them. And one of the guys there, he saw me speaking and he was like, a few months later, got transitioned to another company. And he invited me to come to this company, a drug rehabilitation company. And I started working there and they loved me. I was not clinically licensed, so they paid me cash. They paid me out of their own pocket to have me there because they heard my story. They felt me. They saw how I was working with clients. They kept me there. They put me on more time. Got asked to train their therapists, in fact. And the therapists were coming to my room to get support with my work because who I was being and how I was sharing and connecting the group was working. Even, in fact, one of the owners of the company came into my group and we had done some processing with her. And, she was more of a rescuer type. And so she was like always in everybody's stuff, but I caught that really fast and I just turned all that attention back towards her. And it was like a huge breakthrough moment for her. She broke down in tears and everyone was able to contribute to her and it was powerful. But yeah, I started doing that. And then just from recovery center to recovery center, I worked in the last place I actually volunteered at was a faith-based recovery center. Well, it's not entirely, but they had a faith-based program, which was very interesting. They had greater results than the whole actual Banyan Treatment Center in Pompano Beach. But I worked in the Faith and Recovery Center and got to work with basically 20 to 25, sometimes 30 people in recovery, but they had a mental health division. They weren't people who struggled with drug and alcohol addiction. They were just people who had various clinical mental health disorders, according to their diagnosis. And the therapist started sending them to my room. And so I started working with them. So I had a group of like up to 50 at a time or more. And I would start speaking and sharing just to create the connection. And then I always was inviting them to do some processes, or I was using some sound healing techniques that I had learned from a lot of the friends that I had back in South Florida, using my crystal bowl or my drum or even just voice or toning with our voice. And I started having people do lots of breath work and interpersonal processes and different dynamic things that allowed them to step out of their limited focused self and into relationship with one another. And as Gabriel Mate said, the cure for addiction is connection. I facilitated connection between these patients that allowed them to experience aliveness. And from eye gazing and deep interpersonal sharing. It was beautiful, and the results were tremendous. I felt so invigorated just being there. I was super blessed to have that opportunity. The mental health patients, one of the things that I helped them realize was that they're not their diagnosis. I think that was so important to really distinguish things that even the therapists were kind of like, whoa, a little blown away by, but like, look, you're not the effects that you witness in your mind and your emotions and your body. You're not the behaviors. There is a system, a machine-like function to human being, and I understand it. We can understand it. There are people on the planet who understand it. Not everyone, especially even in the business of therapy necessarily, but there are those of us who do get it. And the mechanicalness of it is pretty straightforward. And so we don't want to identify with the diagnosis. We don't want to identify with the label. We want to help you understand the root causes. We don't deal with symptoms, I would tell them all the time. That's not what we're doing here. We're dealing with the root cause of why you got to be where you are. Okay, so you're bipolar? Okay, that's just a term that labels a set of effects. It's not that intelligent, actually. What's intelligent is identifying and understanding what's at the bottom of it. Why is it that you swing through different states of consciousness and emotional expression? Well, I can help you get at that. And so I started to work with people. I would do one-to-one processing in front of the whole group of 30 to 50 people at a time. And within 10 minutes, we were dealing with a trauma as deep as 5-year-old being molested by her father, watching her brother also getting molested behind closed doors, which for her turned out to be the most traumatizing part of the experience. But just gently revisiting just enough of the thought, emotion, feeling, sensation, and the efforts inside of that whole experience, and giving her this ability to be supported in that, combining it with some breath work and some other, safety building components that I had to bring in, because we're dealing with some heavy stuff, right? And these are people who have not done tremendous amounts of therapy necessarily yet either. So I have to be super laser and careful as I'm going in. But within 10 minutes, she was able to literally view this whole experience and have laughter and pleasure and even gratitude for it happening, seeing that she has a purpose now for her future. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that can happen. I don't take credit for that personally. I would say that first working with everybody who was there and getting everybody in a state of support, because I literally would have everybody breathe with her. When I'm having her breathe, everybody's breathing. So there's this relational dynamic that I create in the room that allows for the human being to get a tremendous rewiring of their brain state and their emotional biochemical states that's completely unlike anything they've known. So they're visiting some of the most painful incidents of their life while being tremendously supported like they've never been supported before. And that's the real miracle. I can't do it alone, but with the group setting, it can happen, which is why I do what I do today. And we'll talk about that, I'm sure, at some point. But I know I got a lot to say, but thank you guys for your listening. I appreciate it.
I love everything that you've been saying so far. I want to open up a holistic healing center that has a lot of the stuff that you have, like bring it into that. Because beautiful. I work with people in addiction, all the time. And it's like, what's that secret sauce? There has to be. And I know that's what I'm put on earth to do as well. But I thank you for doing the work that you did. And of course, you had to go through all those things that you went through, so you wouldn't have been able to connect with them on that level. So, I mean, exactly. I can see that right away. So I appreciate you telling your story, because I mean, I just find this stuff fascinating. I love it so much. So thank you. So my gosh, like there's just so much to talk about, so much to ask. Where do we start? We could go on for hours and hours, but if you were to find somebody what if you didn't have like a group? What if it was just one-on-one? How would you help somebody who is like severely mentally ill and who has all these, labels and diagnoses, and they're walking down the street naked and they're hearing voices, and how would you handle that?
Okay, there's a couple things going on here. So I've had the great fortune of working with some very severe cases that I've had great success with. But somebody walking down the street who's just naked, whatever, there's a lot of variability there. It's one thing to work with someone who is at least willing to do some work, at least a little bit, versus someone who could be completely out of,
reality.
out of reality, but also not even like any sense of like wanting to make a difference for themselves. So now I'm experimental and crazy. I was in New York visiting with Jersey visiting my sister. We went to New York City and we're walking around and my sister was panicking because of my freedom to interact with all these people who she's like, you don't know if they have a gun, like this. She's like that kind of scared. And I'm just practicing interacting with people who are kind of out there. But the first thing to do is create a rapport connection with that human being at whatever level you can. Now, I'm not a rescuer. I'm not going to go out someone's way. I'm not going to try and save people anymore. I used to be that guy. I was pretty successful. I could get into communication with anybody. And I could bring about peace. I would talk to homeless people all the time. People who are like half present, maybe 20% present, and kind of weird. And I was just fascinated by that. I think the first thing is if you want to help people like that, you have to be fascinated and curious. You have to have a tremendous level of like patience and consideration and just be like, I don't know anything about this human being. I think the first thing that will kill it off is thinking that you know something. Diagnosing them in any way, forget about it. You have no chance. That's why most therapists in these recovery centers are not successful, is because they're going in with a framework that says something's wrong with you and you have said it, and they're fixated on what's wrong versus what's right about this human being, which is that there's nothing wrong with the human being. So I go into a relationship like that and it's like, this is a beautiful being who had whatever happened to them. And I don't know the story and I don't know how it got there. But I know that that beautiful being is still very much present within them. And the only reason I know that with absolute certainty is because I got that encounter with my own core that one time 20 something years ago. I was just like, wow. And I knew that I wasn't special in that moment. I just got to be in touch with what's inside of us all. And it was so evidently clear to me. And I was like, man, what was confusing to me back then was like, I thought I was the only one who didn't realize it. And now that I know it, I can play with everybody in that safety of that. I thought I was confused. And now I figured it out. I'm like, oh, we're all good, And then I saw that people weren't acting that way. So that was like, what the heck? And that's when I started to get into this what is going on mentally, emotionally? There's barriers to people's self-awareness. And so I wanted to break through that. But dealing with people on the street, not something that I would recommend. If people are in a center, because it could be dangerous. There are some I'm a martial artist since I was like 6, 7 years old. I'm very comfortable in my body. I've been jumped by 30 people. I've been in a lot of physical altercations. I'm very okay with whatever could happen. Like, not everyone can handle what could happen in that. And maybe I couldn't either, but that does give me a sense of like security when I'm dealing with people out there. But in a center, I've dealt with people like my friend's brother who's had electroshock therapy, which I didn't know they still did, by the way. I thought that should be illegal because it's so damaging to the freaking brain and the nervous system. But under all kinds of medication, we were at a table and he's visiting his brother, which is my friend and business partner at the time. And he would just start raising his hands like this, just up in the air. And my friend, whose brother it was, he started to he would look at me like all weird. He had all this judgment. My natural instinct was to just be like, wow, what's he doing? And I was like, I just raised my hands like he did. And I noticed that he noticed that. And I said, Jeremy, what's going on? And he's like, I can see above the matrix. And I was like, well, tell me about that. I just have this innate interest. I'm fascinated by it. And so the more fascinated and interested you are in that person, and the less judgment you bring to the conversation and connection, the more connection there's going to be, right? There's more connecting and less alienating of the consciousnesses. So that's the basic premise right there. It's just bring tremendous curiosity, interest, and fascination. Like, this is some brand new thing that I've never explored before. And when that's there, that childlike innocence, it's easy to create connection. And we started to get into deeper and deeper communication. And he was starting to have a panic attack at one point. And I said, hey, Jeremy, you want to go outside? Why don't we go take a walk? So we just go take a walk. And I walk with him at his pace, by his side. And I said, what's going on, buddy? What are you noticing? And he'll just share with me what he's noticing. I'm like, how you feeling now? I'm like, are you okay with taking a breath? You start to build this little connection. Then I can give these little commands or make these little requests. Can you take a breath? Deep in through the nose. Yeah, okay, good. How you feeling now? And it's fascinating.
Yeah, I love that. I used to work in crisis with people with disabilities, and they had dual diagnoses, disabilities plus mental health issues. And I had this house of 3 guys, and they were 19, and then the other 2 I think were like 22, and they were all in this house and they were all trying to be, you know, like top dog, and it was pretty hectic. So I had to do a lot of the crisis. Nobody else, it took a special person to be there, and I was able to talk them down and and a lot of them had cognitive levels of like being 8 or, you know, or younger, or 8 to 11. So it was a lot
Wonderful.
of work.
Was it Jesus said you have to have the mind of a child before you can enter the kingdom of heaven?
Mm-hmm.
I could deal with you cognitively at 8 years old. We'll have a lot of fun there.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. But they'd throw fits, and I was like, let's go take a walk and let's go. Yeah. So we would do a lot of that. A lot of walking.
Yeah.
So yeah. Oh,
Good.
I love that. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you too.
And you said so much, and I mean, I don't even know where to start. Like, it's just, you know, you're talking about the Matrix, but even before I go to the Matrix, I guess the first part that you said was, that's impressive. And as you were telling your story, I was listening to, you know, I was thinking of, what about the root cause? What about because everything is cause and effect. And a lot of times most people are just dealing with the effects. And I always say, well, why not just go right at the root? Like, and I know you sometimes can't do that, especially with people, but what I mean thinking is even farther, like, how does it even become the effect if they didn't have access to the drugs, the alcohol, whatever it is? Like, why is that part even existing? And I mean, that's a whole other deep story that, like, you can go deep down the rabbit hole on that one, but still, like, I really love the fact that a lot of times I hear just people dealing with the causes, and they're trying to help the people at that level. But I love the fact that you're dealing with the root of everything. How did you ever come to that part of it? Like, what gave you the idea or the instinct to do that?
I think it goes back to like what I said in meditation, just having those emotions surface, the memories surface, and I call it facing and feeling so that we can embrace and heal. So you got to face and feel to embrace and heal. And I didn't have terms and distinctions, and I wasn't training people at the time. I was not even able to be with myself hardly, but I was just noticing these natural things. I would face the memory, I would feel the experience, and I would embrace it. I would own it. I had to I had to take 100% responsibility for what was there, because it was happening in me. You know, it may have been in the past, but the fact is it's going on in my body, in my brain, in my nervous system, nowhere else. Like, so the ownership part is key. That's the embrace part. When you embrace it, it's like, yeah, this is mine. But to heal it means I've integrated it. It's not now a thing separate from me. It's not even something I'm owning. That's a lower level of evolution of the process. The healing part is when you've made it whole. The word healing means to make whole. Mm-hmm. Right? Even the word salvation from the Bible comes from a word that means to be made whole. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's about making one wholeness with it. And so, you know, dealing with the causes versus the effects or the symptoms, it was very natural for me when that started to surface. And it was like I kind of like started that way. I'm also fortunate that I had this profound spiritual awakening that was like, I realized the cause of everything. I realized that I am united with this central axis of consciousness and existence that is the original source and substance of all that exists in the realm of mind or emotion or of body or any action that can be taken through it. It's like there's this primordial core that just everything flows out from. So that experience just give me this fixation for the baseline, you know, like that core column of something. And so my mind just started thinking this way. And when I started working with people and processing with people, I'm looking, I used to, in the beginning, we're diving right into the pain and the suffering. And I've learned over time that that's not actually the best way to go about it. Not everybody's equipped to be with what's going to come up. And I'm finding even easier and simpler, less painful, less cathartic ways of dealing with trauma, where back in the day, it was like, we have to experience it all and feel it all. I'm like, nah, man, now it's the first thing I'm doing is I'm establishing or anchoring what I call the core, right? We're creating an anchor with the core. So I'm helping people to experience the essence of who they are first, before we even get into a state of processing any other historical pain or trauma or anything like that. Because creating that anchor state helps them to realize the being they essentially are first and foremost, have that experience of peace and safety and inner comfort and power, right? And so we got to create that powerful state first, that experience internally of aliveness and freedom and bliss. And it's possible for a lot of people. Now, some people need to do some processing with the darker stuff first, but the average Joe who comes in, I can deal with that person, give them an anchored state of feeling really good inside. And then we can start to take a look. Once we've built that up over time, we can start to take a look at some of the more challenging parts, the fear, right? The shadow components, the suppressed things that have now become repressed aspects of their consciousness, the things that they're ashamed of, that they're denying, that they don't want to know, they don't want anyone to know about, right? Whatever they've done when they were a kid, or whatever was done to them, or whatever they may be doing recently. Like, there's these hidden compartments and they don't feel safe with all of that. They can be with it themselves. Like if they got a masturbation and pornography issue, like they might be ashamed of that, but they are aware of it, right? But what we got to do is we got to start to make everything okay. I had a neighbor who I just met the guy. I'm moving into my apartment. He opens up to me about his, said, "Hey, how you doing?" His name is Dwayne. He's like, "I'm smoking crack every weekend, and I'm either watching the Weather Channel or porn and masturbating, and that's all I do. I've got government money. I got $4,000 a month. I'm blowing all my money on crack, and it's just what I keep doing, and I'm just totally stuck." And I was like, "Good to meet you. We should have a talk a little bit about this. If you want to come over when I'm settled in here, the next couple of days, feel free, man. Just come on over and knock on the door. We'll sit down. We'll have a conversation." So he did. He came over. He knocked. I let him in. We had a conversation. And I said, "What's going on?" He started to tell me that he's doing all this. And he was terribly ashamed. He felt terribly guilty, but he couldn't stop. So I was like, "Okay, well, first and foremost, I just want to invite you to consider the possibility that there's nothing wrong with what you're doing," which was like mind bending to him. What? I'm like, "It's okay. I've masturbated. I've watched porn, and, I've smoked cocaine, and I've done everything you've done, and, it's okay." Like, "Well, no, it's not okay. Like, I want to keep doing this." I'm like, "I know, but how long is not okay?" And, forcing yourself to try not to do it, how long has that been going on? It's been years now. I got it. So the first thing we need to do is make it okay, just the way it is. And I saw this relief come over him. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Look, man, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with what you're doing. I accept you. You got one person in the world right now who says, 'I'm okay with what you've been doing.' I understand that your parents might not be, that other people might find out about this." And, it's just creating that safe context. Like, and I literally in my heart, like, have nothing about it. I'm like, I don't care that you're watching porn, and I don't care that you're smoking cocaine or smoking crack, whatever you're doing. It doesn't matter to me. Like, you're a human being. I value you. There's still goodness there. And this is just a basic dialogue I'm having with him. I didn't even have to do any real processing. In fact, back then I wasn't trained. I was actually in my marriage at the time. So what I was doing was a form of processing, but I wouldn't even have called it that. Like, I didn't even have structures like that in my consciousness. But I started to just dialogue with him a certain way and minimize this self-attack. And that's a big thing that I'm doing. I'm helping dissolve conflict in consciousness. Now, consciousness is comprised of 4 key domains, right? Plus a 5th domain, which I call the core. The 5th domain is that pure essence of being, the awareness unit that is causational over everything else. That's the central axis of who I am, that I am, right? And it's not an identification with the body and all. It's a universal identity. But then there's the other 4 domains of the individual, which is the mind, emotions. The mind is one, emotions is another. Feelings and sensations are of the body, the somatic region. And then the domain of effort, that's the more subtle realm of the applied force, the way we apply force in our thoughts, in our emotions, or even in the feelings and sensations of the body. That's something that typically we don't even observe. So I bring awareness to these 4 domains to help human beings get conscious of the unconscious. And those 4 distinctions, plus the core, working within those, that's the meat of everything. I call that the self-engineering and empowerment system, or SEE. And it's just seeing into your own being fully and completely. Mm-hmm. And we're dealing with the little self individual as well as the corporate self, which is the cosmic entity, which is the whole of life itself.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's such a deep topic, and it's impressive, and it's refreshing to hear stuff like this, and a very unique way of looking at things, and it really resonates deep with me. Very recently, Amanda had helped me release some emotions that I didn't know I had trapped through her stuff that she calls emotion code, and I was able to activate my Kundalini energy. And as you were talking, it was just, I could tell that was absolute truth. And so, just if someone hasn't told you that you're on the truth path, I really believe that you are.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much.
Awesome. And so you talked a little. Oh, Pamela, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was gonna. So I was just curious, what's like the youngest person that you've been able to bless with your modality?
Wow. With the modalities. So in terms of processing, so the lines are kind of blurry to me because there's formal like coaching clients. I say the youngest of those would be like, I've worked with teenagers. I've worked with 13-year-olds to 17-year-olds in the recovery centers, but younger than that, less formal work I've done, dialoguing. It is the way I am with someone is I'm always, when I say processing, we're just helping people relieve resistance, right?
Right.
We're helping them let go of attachments and aversions to various aspects of their experience, whether, and all that's usually past oriented. But it's the way of dialoguing. So, I mean, I've had conversations with 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds. I've had 6-year-olds and 7-year-old brother team that used to come to my house, and they used to like just throw the door open and they'd come in, and I would put them on my keyboard and my microphone and create little rap music beats, and they would just do their own little raps. And I got some cool videos recording them. And I just have conversations with them. The one grandmother I heard, his name was Zay, the younger one. The grandmother one day called, she's like, "You're so stupid, Zay," she said. I heard her say it so loud, and I was like, whoa, hey, like, hold on now. And I lovingly came alongside of her, and I was like, I just want you to check in on something here. Do you hear this, what you just shared with him, like, and how that might have made him feel? Are you aware of that? And your words have power and command. I'm like, do you want this boy to grow up, your grandson, to be thinking of himself as stupid? I don't think that's what you really want. I'm sure it was just a frustrated moment for you. And she was like, "You're right. Wow, thank you for pointing that out," like kind of relaxing into it a bit, and then working with him a little bit around that conversation. What did you feel? What did you think when he said that? I don't feel very good. They're not very complex beings, but it's pretty simple. So that's a form of processing that I did, I think, with little kids. It's an example of one anyway that I remember very clearly.
I just think that's so important because it's like when you're working, I'm a theta healer, so when I work with children, and I can work with children as well. I always feel so blessed to be able to serve someone who's young like that, because I'm thinking how much I'm being allowed to impact their life, and hopefully take some part that's going to help them move forward on their path and not have all this weight. You talk about the core, and for me, like when I tell people with the theta healing, it's like when we're changing these beliefs and stuff and the things that's happened to them and the traumas, we can pull each one individually, like peeling the onion. Or if I'm really, really lucky, I can get blessed, I can pull that one piece like the Jenga game that toss everything tumbling down. And so I'm just thinking, the more that as light workers, as healers, we can help those who are still growing to see that core in themselves, how much of a blessing that is. So you must have had some really huge blessings in your life.
Yeah, thank you for that. My dream is to see this in education center schools, like from an early age. And I know right now that's just not the case. Most learning is very cognitive, very intellectual. Emotions are completely like just left to the media, left to the, social groups they belong to. And it just, and there's no real way to navigate these other terrains of consciousness intelligently and healthily. And I think getting to children is the most important thing. Then I do a lot of cleaning up of messes, and I'm really good at that, but I would prefer that there were no messes whatsoever. But that means we have to instill within children this freedom to relate to one another interpersonally at a conscious level where they can share their thoughts, their emotions, the feelings, sensations of their body. They can be self-aware and other aware without the fear of it being judged, attacked, ridiculed, criticized, shamed, blamed, made wrong. But unfortunately, most households right now are raising their children under tremendous amounts of commands and authority that is suppressive, and they don't realize that children have an innate sense of well-being and aliveness and intelligence, that and a sense of purpose, that if they were, it's like flowers. Like, you don't need to beat and command your flower to be a flower. You just need to provide the right nutrients and it will become what it's meant to become. And I think children are the same. You just want to provide them enough resources and support to get to who they already came into this world to be. But that's just not the way, I go to college, I'm working at, Florida Atlantic University in Florida, and I'm talking to kids there and, just getting curious, just connecting with people. Like, what do you do? What's up? I'm in medical school. Like, okay, what got you into that? Like, what's the reason that you're, in medical school right now? Like, how'd that become your passion? Like, I don't know if that passion is, my parents thought it would be a good major for me, so I'm just kind of doing it. Like, well, what do you do? Like, I don't know. Like, I want to go party this weekend. And like, okay, so you're not really in a passion. You're not really in a purpose. You're just doing something that someone said would be good for you. And you're actually operating in resistance to it, but you're doing it anyway. So you have these people operating out of congruence with their own desire and interest, just following somebody's command or intent or desire or what they said was going to be right for them. And you got people who are just completely split. And these are the people, my ex-father-in-law from my ex-wife that I told you about, shot himself right before my ex-wife and I divorced, because, he was a successful surgeon, right? He was very wealthy. He had everything you could want, materially speaking, but he was miserable inside. He was completely disconnected, disassociated with himself, from himself and from others. I remember he was fascinated by us going to Home Depot because I helped them remodel their home. And we go to Home Depot and there's this girl who had like piercings and tattoos, and she looked like totally like unhappy with herself and life and miserable. And I just started communicating with her and getting interested in her. And little by little, she started to lighten up and brighten up. And she thanked me. She's like, wow, like, you're just such a nice person. Like, thank you so much for just asking me all of that. Like, nobody does that. And then we're walking away, and Richard, before, he's like looking at me and he's like, how do you do that? Like, why do you care? Remember, he was just like, he was blown. He didn't understand. He's like, what do you even give a shit about somebody like this? He said to me. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, honestly, it was like, I just do. I'm like, I just care about people because I've been down. I guess I've been broken. I've been helpless. I've been, crumbled on the floor. I've been suicidal. Had a knife to my throat, ready to cut my jugular open because I felt so worthless. I'm like, I can sense that in people. And I feel like I've gotten life back. I want to share that. And he's like, man, you are fascinating, and, but it was hard to get through to him. He was also taking Vicodin. We found out later after he died, and he was trying to come off Vicodin, which is a very powerful painkiller. And one of the side effects of coming off Vicodin too quickly is suicidal tendencies or suicidal thoughts. And he sure as hell went through it. He blew his brains out in the garage, and we found out about it, and it was miserable. It was a sad thing. I won't go into what happened afterwards, but I had some strange things, some unusual phenomenon that I'm not really someone who even to be into that kind of thing, but I had a kind of an experience of him. But I would just say that, I got that he still is a good being. He was miserable in his body and his mind and his emotions, but the core of him was as pure as it ever could be. No matter what, anybody on the planet, if I could leave anybody with that, is like, I don't care if it's an Adolf Hitler. You get beneath all the crazy in that person's mind and their emotions, the feelings, especially their history, and all the conflict that was beaten into them or taken away, all the stuff that was taken away from them, and just get to underneath all of that, and you'll find a beautiful human being.
Do you get a sense that with all this masking of young people and everybody, there's going to be a lot of post-traumatic stress? And,
masking?
Well, we have to wear the mask when we in schools and.
Yeah.
Don't you think that's having an effect psychologically on all humans?
Sure. Sure. It's, it prevents us from really knowing who we are and who others are. We live in a virtual reality.
Well, you were talking about how, parents are very authoritarian. They tell children what to do. And this is just another layer of taking away the freedom.
Yeah, it's the worst thing you can do. If you want to drive a human being into psychosis, just command him authoritatively long enough, right? And he'll start to break down. And that's it.
Where did you get your training? Is it Dianetics or?
Oh, you see my bookshelves? Like, you see the books on my desk? Like, they don't even leave my desk. Those are my current, like, in study. Like, it's just nonstop for me. I've trained in high and low places, from Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes working for their company, Business Breakthroughs International, to lesser known trainings like gratitude training in South Florida, to Landmark Worldwide, doing a few years with them and coaching for within Landmark's trainings. You name it. Large group stuff, small group stuff, study stuff, one-to-one coaching, small group coaching. I run my own group called the Core Encounter.
I have one more question. I love your story about your spiritual awakening. Do you think that happens to many people? Have you met very many?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I have. I think it's different for a lot of people. I think there's levels of spiritual awakening, and I think that they're all important. You know, they're all important. I think that there is an apex, though. I think there's just a kind of place where there's no differentiation anymore. There's just a central axis of unification of consciousness that's just like, oh, this is where it's all at. This is where it all came from. This is where it all is.
Did you ever have another experience like that? Or was that a...
Yeah, I had one before, actually, that was lesser intensity. It was a sense of oneness with everything. It was a sense of like connectedness. I was meditating on I had read a book. I can't remember the book, but I had read something. The guy who was the guy actually? The idea was to concentrate on the spinal column in the nervous system. And I was walking. I'd left the beach. This was like really. I was still hanging out with this one friend of mine from the drug days, and this was like my last association. It was like the last one. Like, he wanted to go to this party. I went to the beach instead with him. We went to the beach for a minute. I'm like, I want to check out the beach. It was nighttime. It was late. It was already like midnight. And he wanted to go to this party. And he's like, come on, we're going. I'm like, nah, I'm staying here. I started taking off my shirt. I started digging in the ground. He's like, what the hell are you doing? He's like, what's wrong with you, man? And I was like, what's wrong with you, man? You know? And he's all dressed up and all these nice clothes. And I'm like taking my clothes off. And I'm like, I'm getting in the freaking sand. I'm going to get dirty. I'm going to go in the ocean. And he's like, dude, you're fucking crazy. I'm like, you're crazy. I'm like, you just leave. I'm going to walk home. And that's it. I didn't talk to him for years. I later ran into him. But I just started connecting to the stars and the moon, just like getting so curious. And I just started feeling this elation. And I walked home from there, you know, feeling pretty good. I'm concentrating, like, you know, on my nervous system and my brain and just thinking about those things and like meditating, walking. I got like 3-mile walk at least. So all of a sudden I hear this music across the street, this little motel that was there. It's not there anymore, but in Boca Raton. And I'm going up the Palmetto Bridge, about to go up the Palmetto Bridge, and the motel is like right there. And I hear this music and I look and I see this little group of people singing and like drum and some woman playing guitar and she's singing. And so there's a payphone that used to be there, you know, the kind you put quarters in. And I walk over there and I'm like, I'm pretending to call my girlfriend. And I'm like, you know, but I'm really just trying to listen to them. And this woman is singing about Jesus. And I've never really been exposed to that kind of music before. They look like a bunch of hippies. And it's well past, you know, 1 a.m, maybe 2 a.m. And I'm feeling really good by her voice. I didn't understand the words. I heard something about Jesus and I felt the music. And I was like, And I just remember soaking in that. And I was too shy to go over there. I wanted to talk to them, but I was embarrassed. So I kind of said, nah, I'm just going to walk home. I got to the bridge again. I start going up the bridge now and I'm just contemplating on my nervous system. And then all of a sudden there was just this like voice inside of me that was like singing, and like this rainbow kind of colored like face in my mind's eye just kind of popped up. And I just heard this voice say, we'll meet again someday. And it was like a high, it was like, we'll meet again someday. And the last, like the someday just kind of just kept going up. And I was like, what does that mean? You know? And then I just felt all of a sudden my whole being just opened. And it was like my nervous system just like broke through something. And I felt connected to the trees, the sky, to everything in a way that was like so visceral. And I remember just walking home and I was like, wow. And I just like carried this all the way to my bedroom. And I laid in my bed that night and I remember just feeling like life was breathing me. It was breathing me. I was like laying in my bed. every breath was like, wow, it's like, I'm not doing this. This is doing me. I'm like, this is freaking awesome. It was like just riding in the raft in the ocean on a calm, like gentle, wavy day. And I was like, oh my gosh. So that was the first thing that ever happened to me. And then the next one was like epic. And then lesser experiences after that. But, you know, they're important, but they can be a little dissociating and disconnecting. So, you know, what I tell people all the time, and like I've had people like want to go into these deep things, I'm like, it's right here. Like there's nowhere you're going to get to and there's nowhere you're going to go that it isn't. It's literally here. Like all those experiences showed me was that the most juicy, vibrantly alive experience you could ever want is right here in this moment. It's never going to not be here. You know, there's just the limited view we have, the fixed states of consciousness that have us identifying with lesser quality experiences and disconnected experiences rather than seeing like this is the swirl of the cosmos right in front of my face. Like you can't really go anywhere else to find anything better. It's really all here. My computer monitor, the light, this thing, you guys, like, and girls, like, it's just like, we are it. There's nowhere to get to. There's nowhere to get away from. You know, we're literally the whole thing happening right now. And I promise you, like, even when I had that most glorious, like, oh, it was definitely a lot of light and whatever, but it was just the nowness of like reality. It was like, whoa, man, like I am right here, right now, the thing that I was looking for this whole time. Oh my God, you know, and it was just like pulsing through me with like epic vibration. So you're always going to be it. Now, how do we get to experience that more? Well, that's what I do. That's the C system, right? Self-engineering and empowerment. It's really just a peeling away of things. There's not much to change about yourself. You know what I mean? There's just about getting back in touch with who you always were, who you are now, who you forever will be, and just gently releasing everything that's in the way.
Very good.
Love it. Yeah, Rebecca's had a few like spiritual awakenings too that she's so interesting when she talks about hers as well. But we've gone way over really fast. Do you just want to talk about the program that you're doing now, what it is, and
yeah? So I have the Leadership Influence and Team Training Program, which Colette is a part of, and LIT, LITT. So yeah, we get lit there. So that's just training facilitators or coaches to be using the self-engineering and empowerment system. And how we do processing. The programs that I'm offering, and we'll be launching again in the future this year, is the Core Encounter. So the Core Encounter will have multiple parts. We're including a retreat this year. And the highest level program will be Invincible. Invincible will be a year-long, you know, mastermind experience, quarterly retreats. That's what we're targeting on, focusing on right now as like that's where we really want people to get to. But the Core Encounter is a place to come and start to get some basic training in the C system, have some interpersonal experiences in utilizing this. It's very simple. It's very effective. I'm evolving it constantly. So what it was last November when we did November 14th, 15th, it ain't going to be in the end of March when we have this one. So that's all. New website, new everything's coming also. So we don't have a website to go to right now, but that's okay. I'm happy to just be here in conversation with you guys. I don't need to really promote anything. I'm grateful to be sharing myself with you, to be witnessed by you, to be seen and heard and connected with, and to, just really get to know more of you from here forward too would be great.
Well, Vince, you're very inspiring, and I'm going to share this onto my Clear Coding with Amanda Facebook page because I have people that are in addiction in there, and I think your story will inspire them as well. So I think
that's wonderful. That. I would love that. That makes my heart sing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
And if someone did want to get a hold of you for more information, where would they go? How would they find you?
They could go to vincebellitto.com. You know, they could go to my website. That needs some updating too, because we're doing a lot of changes this year. But you could definitely get in contact with me through there. And also the Facebook page is probably the best. I mean, just check out my Facebook page. Look for Vince Bellitto now as the handle, but you just search for Vince Bellitto. You'll find me. That's Bellitto. And yeah, I love connecting with people on Facebook. Send me a message. Let me know what's up. If you want to do some work with me, more than happy to do that. There's one-to-one work we could always do, but I would highly encourage people to do my group work. Join the Leadership Influence and Team Training Program. If you're really like about this work, like you really are like, okay, I want to be part of this team. I want to be part of this energy. I want to be part of this mission. You know, and you have some skills already and you've got some experience, then this could be a place for you to come. We're building a business as well as operating a training. So it's like you get to be part of the business design. Colette's on the mastermind design team, you know, running through the program material. Like we're running a dual operation here. So it's pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. Really appreciate you taking this time to be with us today and share your wonderful wisdom with our viewers. If you like this video, please subscribe, like, comment if you have any questions for any of us. Anything that came to you, thoughts, ideas, please comment below, and hope to see you on our next video.